The weight of Amina's shame was unbearable. Her body was cold from the rain that had not stopped falling since her father's fury had erupted. Her father had lashed her with his sjambok until her back bled, hoping to force the truth from her lips. Yet Amina remained silent. Her lips refused to utter the name of the father. She would not let her father use her pain to force a confession. "Who is the father of this abomination?" he shouted again, his voice cracking with anger. Amina stood in the cold rain, shivering, her body broken, but her spirit unyielding. She would not reveal the truth, for the truth would destroy her. The shame that had already been heaped upon her was too much for the village to bear. She had no intention of making it worse by naming the man who had abandoned her. "We have to go to his family, so that he can wipe this shame from our family," her father continued, pacing with frustration. "You have brought disgrace upon us, Amina." But Amina could not answer. She just stared at the ground, lost in a world of her own, her mind tangled in confusion. Her lips refused to move, as though they had been sealed by some unseen force. "Beat her one more time, Vusi," her father barked, his voice laced with venom. "Maybe that will teach her." With a cruel motion, Vusi lifted his long sjambok, the heavy stick, aimed at Amina's back. It came down with a sickening crack, and Amina fell to the ground, the air knocked out of her lungs. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain, but her pride kept her from crying out. "Are you ready to talk now, Amina?" her father demanded, his face twisted with rage. "Tell me, who did this to you?" Amina lay there, gasping for air, her body broken but her soul still fighting. She could not, would not, reveal the father's name. It was not the man who had abandoned her that she protected, but the child inside her, the only thing pure in her life. This was unheard of in the Mutanda village. In the village, the maidens were respected. Before they turned 12, they underwent the Kolika ritual, a sacred ceremony where they learned the ways of women, how to behave, and how to guard their virginity. The women of Mutanda held their purity in reverence, and to lose it before marriage was a catastrophe. Amina's pregnancy was a violation of their most sacred customs, and to make matters worse, she refused to name the father, which was considered an even greater offense. "I don't want your daughter here, in my house," her father had said in a quiet fury, when he realized the depth of the disgrace. "She has demonstrated that she is no longer a child but a woman. Therefore, I cannot keep a fully grown woman in my house, let alone a child with no tribe. She is lost to us." Amina's mother, Moni, watched helplessly, her heart breaking for her daughter. In the end, she took Amina and led her to a forgotten hut, far from the village. The two women stood there in silence, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on them both. "Amina, you are a woman now," Moni said softly, her voice trembling. "Your life is no longer yours, something is brewing inside of you, something you refuse to speak about. Is it a man or a spirit who did this to you? Only a fool tests the depth of a river with no feet. Look at you. You jumped inside a stormy river without knowing its dangers. You have carried that storm into our home." Tears welled in Amina's eyes, but she did not speak. The words of her mother rang in her ears like a harsh drumbeat. She had caused this, and yet, she couldn't understand how or why. How had she become the very thing the village had feared? How had she brought such disgrace to her family? "Is this what I taught you, Amina?" her mother continued, her voice bitter with sorrow. "What will the people say about me and my teachings? How could you do this to your own blood family?" They stood there, silent in the cold night, until the first light of dawn. The next morning, Moni went back to the village, but she returned each day to bring food and comfort her daughter. She kept the secret, though the burden weighed heavily on her. The village people began to notice that Amina was never seen anymore, and the rumors began to grow. The weight of the shame grew too strong for Moni to carry alone. Her husband's constant yelling, the endless blame he placed on her for the curse her daughter had brought upon their family, had driven her to the edge of despair. One evening, Moni could no longer bear it. She went to see her oldest friend, Nia, who lived across the village. Nia's eyes widened in shock as Moni poured out the entire story, explaining everything. She had no more strength to keep the burden of silence. "You have to see Baba," Nia advised, her voice low. "Baba lives deep in the forest. He is the one who can help you. If there is a remedy to this disaster, he is the one who can find it. He can even terminate this pregnancy with ease." That night, under the cover of darkness, Moni ventured into the forest, carrying a basket filled with food. She walked the winding paths, her heart pounding with fear and hope. The forest was thick and alive with the sounds of night creatures, but her destination was clear. The village elders called him Baba, the wise man who communed with the spirits, the one who could guide the lost. "Baba! Baba!" Moni cried out, her voice trembling with desperation. From the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged. Baba appeared, his face hidden behind a mask of cloth, his movements graceful and deliberate. He was like a spirit himself, his presence both calming and unsettling. "Why have you come, woman?" Baba asked, his voice deep, as if speaking from the very earth itself. "My home is on fire," Moni cried, her voice breaking. "I need your help. My daughter. She has brought shame upon us. She is pregnant, and the father has abandoned her. She refuses to speak. Please, Baba, help us." Baba studied her silently for a moment, then nodded slowly. "A child is like an axe. Even if it hurts you, you still carry it on your shoulders." He sighed, as though his words were weighted with the knowledge of centuries. "Let me consult the gods." Baba danced around a mystical fire, chanting words that Moni could not understand. The fire crackled and whispered, and the wind howled through the trees. Baba's eyes went wide with shock as he stopped in his tracks, his hands raised to the heavens. "You cannot terminate this pregnancy," Baba shouted. "This is a thorn you must bear for a little while. It is not a curse, it is a test. You must carry this burden and protect this child. Only then will the spirits allow you to heal." Moni stood in stunned silence, her heart heavy with the weight of Baba's words. She could not understand why the gods would allow such a thing to happen to her daughter. But she knew one thing for certain: Amina's journey was far from over. With a heavy heart, Moni returned home, carrying Baba's words like a bitter fruit. She found Amina sitting in the abandoned hut, staring at the sky as though waiting for some divine sign. "Amina," she said softly, "we cannot change what has happened. But we must protect this child. The gods have spoken. This is your burden to bear, and only through it will we find peace." Amina's eyes filled with silent tears, but there was no answer.